presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
Hello and welcome into a special Halloween edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate. Woo! What an entrance, right?
Right, that did it. That did
hear me?
Yeah. It was very. You could hear it, but it made you sound like a supervillain.
Oh well, that was what I was going for. An evil Iron Man.
Yeah, it works. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, man. Just had to have a little fun. That is a 3D printed mask that was totally meant for my son, but I stole it for the time being because he ended up going with a stormtrooper costume. Is your son into Star Wars over there, TJ?
Not he just likes Baby Yoda and Darth Vader.
Can't blame him there.
Like he doesn't understand. Like he's never seen. I've never seen Star Wars. So
what?
Yeah, I have never watched a Star Wars movie at all. Ever in my time. I think my wife has, but not me. I don't I'm not a sci-fi guy though.
Okay. I can respect. I'm not like a Star Wars crazy fan type of person. I enjoy it. I like sci-fi stuff, but I'm kind of like one and done. Like I've seen Star Wars a few times, but usually I'm not going to sit there and watch the whole movie. Like I'll watch a couple minutes while it's on and stuff. I know the big characters, but I don't know the ins and outs. My son is like crazy, man. He's got, books and TV series that he watches on. I'm sure your son has Disney Plus, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I think your son does like one show that my son does, which is that Amazing Spider-Man or whatever that's called.
Oh yeah, the what is it? Miles Morales.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a cool one. Gotta love that. Oh, Ben's already joined and saying what's up, and he's asking if you're watching Jack State and Liberty in the background.
You know it. I'm checking it out. This is actually a pretty good game. It's a barn burner right now, 14 apiece after halftime, third quarter. So I know Rich Rodriguez was pissed in that second quarter about having to burn a timeout that he didn't want to. But yeah, certainly got it on in the background. I try to have, if there's a game on, I try to have it on back here just because, it's nice to have in the background. I don't know if we'll ever get like copyright infringement or something, but
no, I can tell you from my viewpoint, like it's so bright that it's kind of like blurred. There's no way you could pick up what it is,
Gotcha.
So it works. It works okay. Saying what's up to Dominic as he's joining the show as well. The Double Doms are on right now. And you know what? Artie is suspiciously absent. Do you think that has to do with what transpired last night?
It might be. It might be. I know he was pulling hard for Texas. And listen, Texas State played fairly well, especially on defense last night. I mean, only allowing, the occasions to score 23 points the entire game. I think that was a huge feat in itself. So they got nothing to be ashamed of.
No, not at all.
They just didn't have enough. I mean, and then injuries, right? I mean, you can't help when people get hurt. So, they played. It was a valiant effort for sure. No moral victories, but
right.
They certainly get a nod for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I guess that's our intro because TJ's already going into the games, which is great. So we'll go right into it. Brought to you in part by collegefootballdogs.com. As always, Dubby Energy, Fanplex Graphics, TSN Off Road, and your favorite seasoning, Dano's Seasoning, as well. Let's jump right in. We've got Week 10 preview lined up for you guys, and look at that. We've got an out-of-conference matchup coming up as we've got a matchup with the UConn Huskies. Does that make any sense to you? Like, why are we scheduling a UConn team?
Well, and why are we scheduling them this late in the season?
Yeah, I guess that's they're still an independent, so I guess they do what they want. And Georgia State said, "Sure, we'll come up to you." I think did they come down to Georgia State last year, or they played somebody in conference last year. I feel like UConn did. Might have been Georgia State.
They did play in conference, but I don't know who it was. I can find out.
I think it was Georgia State, and I think it was early in the season that they hosted UConn, I believe. Maybe it was late.
Last year, UConn was bad. Terrible.
Yeah, and Ben making a good point here. If UConn wins, they'll be bowl eligible, which is interesting.
I know. They've got 5 wins.
Yeah. Yeah, they have not been good because I have a UConn fan at work, or did actually. He's left now. That I like to give all kinds of hell to. Now I can't during basketball season because obviously they control it. But I liked having fun with him during football season. So did you find who they played last year? Was it Georgia State?
Let me see.
I'm pretty sure it was. I think they hosted them in Atlanta in like the second game of the year, maybe. Or, geez, it could have been the third game of the year. Second or third game. I'm going to go on a whim and say Panthers hosted the Huskies on the second or third game of the season last year.
That was James Madison, and they lost 44-6 on November 11th.
Dang, I was wrong. They played JMU last year?
Yep.
I don't remember that at all. Not one bit, but hey, that's great. Great.
But it makes sense that they lost that bad.
Well, yeah, it makes sense that UConn lost that bad. That's definitely true. I just didn't remember that's who it was last year. So I just knew that it was somebody. No, see, I was right. Georgia State, second week of the year. They went down to Georgia State.
Yeah,
and lost
September 9th. Yep, September 9th, 35-14.
Two matchups against Sunbelt.
Yeah, they played both. Okay, I only saw the November 11th.
Interesting. Yep, Ben James found it like right when we were saying it. Georgia State hosted them. Okay, so it's a return trip. Makes more sense there. I thought once I started seeing it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we saw this matchup before. So we have, and a matchup that Texas State and Louisiana have done now 11 times, but Louisiana has won every single one of these games. They won last night again, 23-17. I'll tell you what, TJ, you say you watch all kinds of football, no matter the level, no matter the night of TV that they occupy.
100%.
This, whether we do this or not, or just take it in as casual football watchers, this was a great game.
Oh, outstanding football game. Out from start to finish. I mean, the defense for both teams played exceptionally well. It was a hard-fought football game, literally down to the last couple minutes.
Yes,
I mean, it was a solid football game.
Yeah, I was impressed with this one. I didn't put anything on this one. Texas State was favored by 3.5. I'm not sure if that's what it ended up being right at the end. I think it went down to like 2.5. I could be wrong. I
can't remember.
Yeah, I'm using what we used from Sunday night. So
right. Okay.
It's whatever that was. I went with that if you had placed it. 3.5 for Texas State and 59.5 total, which didn't even get close. So you wouldn't have hit on any of that. I would have taken the under and Louisiana. I'm obviously saying that after the fact, but that's what I would have done. I wouldn't have put much on it, but Woolridge again, man. Game manager is probably not an accurate enough description. Like field general, impressed. I don't know if it means more.
Yeah, I was impressed with his ability to be mobile and use his legs, especially towards the end of the game. Icing the game the way he did. He did a phenomenal job. And then 18-28. I mean, that's pretty efficient. That's a pretty efficient night. So I mean, that's essentially about 65% of your passes completed. Didn't have a huge night, 252 yards, but he did enough, and that's what it took to win. And so they did it on the ground, and they did it in the air, But it was a solid performance by Louisiana. But again, like we said earlier, I was really impressed by Texas State's defense as a whole. And just like you said, a great football game all the way around.
Yeah. And you know what's really crazy when you look at the stats for both teams? We've got a couple more things to talk about real quick on this one. But, Texas State goes for 177 on the ground, Louisiana 172. Texas State goes for 201 in the air, 252 for Louisiana.
Right.
And so you've got two really evenly matched teams here. And you saw that obviously in the final score. Sometimes you get a score that doesn't indicate that the game was really even. This one was different. It was what you would expect when you see a lot of statistics that match up pretty well. And the big thing I wanted to note here is a couple injuries, obviously. The scary one on the tackle for Louisiana. Luckily, he got better and got to fly home with his teammates, got released from the hospital. So good to see that. Jordan McLeod goes down with what is apparently a knee injury, or very likely a knee injury. Martinez came in and looked good. 11 of 14, 113 yards, did throw one interception, no touchdowns, but I was impressed with what I saw to him. I don't think I'd really seen him play at all yet. So
yeah, I know I hadn't seen him play yet.
Yeah. Capable backup if he has to go more. Jordan McLeod wasn't having the greatest game when he went out, but he, again, full credit to the Cajuns defense for keeping him completely in check. Ishmael Mahdi had a pretty decent game, 82 yards, 1 touchdown, but Draylon Washington, as we'll see here in a minute after we do the power rankings for the clips that you like to do, or I like you to do, I should say, probably more accurately.
No, I like to do them too.
Well, yeah, I knew you did like to do them, but I asked you to do them, and you happily obliged. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, here it is. The only undefeated team left in conference play. The Cajuns now 4-0. Texas State sitting at 2-2 after being thought of as probably the odds-on favorite pretty much across the board to take the Sun Belt before it started this year. They got some work to do, and now the Cajuns own the tiebreaker, which makes that work even harder because now they've got to rely on other teams to beat those guys,
right?
At least 3 times.
Yeah, which does not look good.
No. I'll go ahead and put money on the fact that won't be happening, unfortunately, for the fans of Texas State. Let's see. What do we got next? I think it's right into the power rankings. All right. So let's go through. I'll go through my top 5. And we'll go through yours, and then we'll go down the list from there. So pretty easy. We both got the Cajuns at 1. Spoiler alert. I have Marshall all the way up at 2, and we'll go back and forth on this. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it that way. We both have Marshall or Louisiana at 1. I've got Marshall at 2. You have them at 10th.
Yeah.
So you like to anger the ODU fans last week. You've remedied that. It looks like. But now you've got the Marshall people on against you. Actually, I should say. So what is the thought process with Marshall being below some of these teams that we've just seen, plus Georgia Southern, who they – oh, no, I'm sorry. Georgia Southern did beat them head-to-head, but that was a comeback. Marshall, yeah. So let's hear your reasoning behind Marshall being down at 10th, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm just not seeing enough out of Marshall offensively, really on either side of the ball, to make me – I put it to you like this. The teams that I have ahead of them, I believe that if they lined up and played, can beat them. I believe that they can beat them from a lot of different ways. Now, I was very high on Coastal coming in, and obviously they've dropped considerably since then. But Marshall, and I wasn't. I mean, even at the start of the season, I think I only had them at 8 once the season started. So it's not like they moved a whole bunch. And it really wasn't anything that they did wrong for me. It was more or less, Texas State and Arkansas State and really especially South Alabama, what those 3 teams have done to sort of jump them, and then obviously ODU. So I never was high on Marshall to begin with, and they haven't really shown me anything that has made me change my mind. They've got a couple of decent wins, but nothing that, like I said, I'm looking at their wins and losses right now. Their wins have been against App State, Western Michigan, Stony Brook, and Georgia State. None of that impresses me. They've lost to Georgia Southern. They lost to, obviously, Ohio State. But Virginia Tech is not a very good football team at all. And they lost 31-14 to them. They let them score 31 points. So I just don't see enough out of them. Now, again, the Ohio State game, what are you going to do, right? I mean, It's Ohio State. But their wins are not impressive at all. Not enough for me to put them ahead of really any of these teams. Like I said, South Alabama, super impressed with the way they played. I don't think that if they lined up right now, they could beat South Alabama. For that same reason, I don't think they could beat Arkansas State, those 2 dynamic quarterbacks. Georgia Southern has played outstanding and has beat them head-to-head. I don't think that they can beat Coastal. Coastal has not been as good as we thought they'd be coming into the year. But I do think they've got a high-powered enough offense that they'd outscore them. Texas State, Ismail Mahdi, do we need to say any more? And then ODU and ULM have earned my respect throughout this entire football season so far. So I don't think that they could beat any of those teams head-to-head if they lined up.
Interesting. And Ben James does agree with you. He says he just doesn't think Marshall is explosive.
And towards the last 6 games of last year and into the season, they have not been explosive at all.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree with that. Like, explosive probably isn't the word I'd use. No. I think if they can rely on A.J. Turner to continue to run the ball successfully like he has been, that's something they should lean on. Braylon Braxton. It's like 2 first names. But
Right.
They keep giving him the ball, and he keeps doing what he needs to do. Now, is he a massive threat throwing the ball? No, we've seen that he's not necessarily that. He can be in spurts, but he's much more dangerous with his legs on the ground. So my thought process for me having them up that high is they should have won that game at Georgia Southern. They had the tools to do it. That would have been their probably, I don't know, would you say that would be their most impressive victory of the season had they won that game?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. So it was hard to put them at 2 right now over ODU, but it was a close one. I just had been harking on the fact that Braxton should have been the guy earlier, and they took a while to get to him. Now that they've got him, I think they'll be smoother and they'll be better, kind of like Colton Joseph with ODU, who I have at 3. You have at 4, so we're pretty close there. But I think they've got the guy in place. Just got to let him continue to get into a groove and to roll and conform this offense the way they want. I guess that's probably enough of Marshall talk. So ODU will go to, because I kind of rolled into that already. Colton Joseph was one of the reasons, but man, what a freaking game they had.
Yeah, that was a
Georgia
performance.
Southern.
That was a performance for the ages.
Unbelievable. Any doubt that anybody had, mostly TJ, but any doubt anybody had about the Monarchs going in, I will say, I think I agreed with you that I would have taken Georgia Southern to cover at least, if not win the game outright before that game happened. I just trusted what I thought was a more explosive offense. In fact, honestly, it looked like they changed jerseys to me. Like what I thought might happen is like them changing jerseys. Like what happened to Georgia Southern's offense? It was bad. Now the defense on the Georgia Southern side wasn't all that surprising. We've seen that stuff, right? Boise State to start the year, Marshall jumping out to a big lead. Not totally shocking that they were letting up points, but you thought they could maybe get into a scoring fest, and that just did not happen. So, ODU winning that impressive jumped up pretty big for both of us. Certainly big for you, and certainly decently for me. South Alabama, I have it 4. You have them at 7, but both go up in our power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess it was pretty much similar to ODU, right? They just smashed ULM without any doubt. They won that game easily.
It was never a question, which was crazy in my opinion. There he is.
Yep, he's decided to show it. He's not too embarrassed about last night, I guess. No, but again, last night was a great game to watch. So what's up?
No reason to be embarrassed, Artie.
No, definitely not. Especially when your starting quarterback goes out to, it is what it is. The Cajuns are an elite team for a reason. We'll see if they end up in the top 25 after this week. There's a chance. I think there's a pretty good chance they end up there. But yeah, South Alabama leaving no doubt, looking like the team that came to Boone and crushed App that way. They did that same type of thing to ULM. Everybody scored, it felt like. Especially on the running side of the ball. I think both running backs had 2 touchdowns, if I can remember correctly from last week. It's been a while, so it's hard to remember that far back, I feel like. JMU, for me, at 5, you have them jumping up to 2. So you still like what you saw to JMU, even though they played what we have both as the worst team in this conference as of right now, which is Southern Miss. You still like their game against the Golden Eagles there.
You don't get punished for wins. You don't get punished for wins, and I had ULM at 2nd. ULM lost, and that's the jump. And quite frankly, ULM should have come down even further. I just could not, based on record, justify putting them below ODU or Georgia Southern right now. Although I will say the one caveat is, and I told you about this, I struggled with Arkansas State and South Alabama flipping those.
I'm putting Ben's comment up because he says that right now. In my opinion, I don't see why South Alabama is above A-State when Red Wolves beat them. But we both have – I have South Alabama well above A-State. You have them right neck and neck, but you have A-State just above South Alabama.
And the head-to-head is the only reason that is the case right now. Had it not been for the head-to-head, I certainly would have had South Alabama at 6. Now, I say that. Do I think either of these teams are the same teams that played each other, 4 weeks ago? I don't think they're the same football teams, right? So, but I got to honor the head-to-head. And that's why it is the way it is right now.
Yeah. If they would have played last week, I would have definitely had to honor the head-to-head. To me, like you said, this is far enough away now. We're starting to see some of these teams separate a little bit. So my thought process is, Ben just talked about it, explosiveness. I don't know if I see the explosiveness out of the Red Wolves offense. They have some big spurts, but they break down once they get into the red zone. They have teams come back and get back into games after they should put their foot on the necks and finish it off, right? Like they just can't close out these games, and they can't win like really impressively to me. South Alabama, on the other hand, can do that, and they have done that multiple times against ULM, who was a pretty good team coming in, and against App State, who obviously hasn't been great, but it was a home game in Boone, and they just demolished them. So, yeah, to me, it's just like I trust the offense at South Alabama to put up more points, and their defense has really been very solid as well. They've had a couple of gaffes, but I trust them more than I trust A-State at this point. I guess that's why. And mine's disparity is pretty big. I got South Alabama at 4 and A-State all the way down at 8, even though A-State did come up with the victory and some other teams dropping, that were above them, such as Texas State, who I have at 9. Coastal kind of goes down on a week they don't even play at 10, but again, that's byproduct. Both of us had App State and Georgia State just flipping, and I think that, to me, that makes sense, right? Like that game was really close.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like one team blew out the other. I think just having them one spot of separation makes perfect sense. You already touched on it. ULM does go down to 3 in your poll. They go all the way down to 6 for me in mine. That performance was just really bad.
The reason I didn't drop them down that far is because everybody's due for a bad game, right?
True.
Like no team is perfect. Everyone has games that you look up and see, wow, how the hell did that happen? Kind of weak, right? I mean, the Browns beating the Ravens.
Yes.
Right. Like no one thought that was going to happen. Right. So everybody has, no matter what level it is, those what the heck kind of games. So I didn't beat them up too bad for it, but they got to bounce back in order to stay at 3 for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ben is saying that you can't base power rankings off record. You absolutely can. You have to at some points, because some teams haven't played head to head. And even when they have, like I said, once you get too far away, you got to look at the whole picture.
Right.
That's what power rankings are. They're not standings for that reason. So you can move these teams around and say that one thing isn't the same as the other, because that's what makes it fun. That's why people want to interact with this stuff. One drive offense plays good. Next drive defense plays good. It's complete opposite, in my opinion, is what he says about that Arkansas State offense right now. 2 teams that stayed the exact same. Well, there's 3 teams across the board that stayed the exact same. The Cajuns at 1, obvious. And then I'd say this is obvious as well. Troy and Southern Miss round out the bottom 2, 13 and 14 for both of us. Troy did have a pretty epic comeback attempt against Arkansas State, but it did fall short. So to me, again, you didn't get the win. I don't know if I'd have put them above Georgia State or not with the win, to be totally honest with you.
No, Georgia State played well enough against App that I think Georgia State and App would line up and beat both of those teams.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Being there live for that one, I was really impressed with both teams. I mean, the defense wasn't great on either side, but the offenses are both pretty good, right? I mean, again, you can only hammer so many times, but this is a team that beat Vanderbilt, who's now done what they've done along the way. So, yeah, go back and look at Georgia State's record and then compare that to how they've lost some of these games. It's going to tell you that this team is better than what their record shows. Like,
for sure.
It just is. I just don't think that the record indicates what really went on here. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Is there anything else you want to say before we? Well, I guess we touch on Texas State dropping for both of us.
Yeah, I think we addressed it a little bit, and that was based on for last night essentially.
Yeah,
and not that they didn't put up a great effort. It's just what everybody else did.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like, you have him at 8, I have him at 9. It's a little bit more of people jumping up. I didn't really want to punish them greatly for that loss. But again, like you said, you kind of have to punish a loss and reward a win in some form or fashion, or try to.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, and Ben James mentioning that Butch Jones got his 100th career win as a head coach, becomes the 17th active coach to have 100-plus wins in college football. So not a small feat there. Congratulations to head coach Butch Jones on that. I think this is where we will go to your clips next, because that is the next matchup that we'll talk about. And so we will jump over to our first clip of the night. We're just going to do 2 tonight. This one comes from the game just that happened just last night. And this one will be a 64-yard touchdown run for Washington on a 3rd and 10. Was this early on in the game here?
Yeah, so what you're going to see is man coverage right throughout. It's obvious. They show it and move with the motion. You count 7 guys in the box, right? 7, 8 guys in the box. The last thing you're thinking is on 3rd and 10 that you're going to run the football, which is why it's such an amazing call, right? But it's only amazing if it works. And in this case, it worked out really, really well. But in most cases, right, you want to be smart and you want to be sort of – and the second thing is, when you've got this type of a blitz and this type of a look with a run play called, you better have a good blocking scheme. And 2 things were true, right? So you see the tight end pull across, right? He picks up he's essentially the trap guy, and that he's following up is essentially an outside trap, and it ends up being. So watch I guess it's not a tight end. It's a wide receiver that comes down in motion, right? He's gonna line up in that sort of H-back position. And what you're gonna see is the offensive line wash everything down to the right, and that sort of defensive end is gonna get kicked out by that wideout, right here, and that's where the hole opens. And that the receiver on the backside actually takes 2 defenders. He blocks 2 guys. So but yeah, it's when you hit it, and not often do you hit it, but when you do, it is a big game because you've got everybody that's wearing a burgundy jersey up at the line of scrimmage, right? So you wide out to your other side, to the top of the screen. Watch, he's going to wash down 2 guys, right? He's going to come inside. He's going to take his man, boom, and then he's going to wash down another one. You see that? And he did just
beautiful
enough. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any more perfect than that. That is how you draw it up in practice. That is running against shells. And by shells, I mean you're not tackling at practice. That is how it looks at practice. I don't think he got touched the entire way.
Nope.
That's perfect execution.
Yeah. And speaking of, here we go. We got a thing from Artie. Watch the Bobcats coaching staff make some game time adjustments. Yeah. Man, watch this disaster. Bobcats run secondary is second to none and 1-arm tackle attempts. Yeah.
It looked that way.
That one wasn't pretty, but full credit to coaching, unless Woolridge did that read on his own, I guess. But this one next up comes from ODU versus Georgia Southern, and where Colton Joseph puts this ball for his receiver Houston to end up in the end zone. He's going to be the receiver down here at the bottom part of your screen. He's barely on the screen, but you'll see him run this here.
Yeah, another one of those plays where if I'm the guy calling the play, if you better be right, right? And what I mean by that is in a typical situation where you're running a fade route from the outside, you typically do not do an inside release unless you know you are going to win. Now, he guessed right, the receiver at the bottom of the screen, because there is a jam about to happen, or at least an attempt at a jam that's about to happen, and he is going to miss horribly. And that is why he get his hips turned, and now he's created space. I mean, he's beat at the line of scrimmage. And that's one-on-one go ball. And 23 got beat out of his socks on that play. I mean, you can't – that's about as bad as a jam attempt that I've seen, because not only did you miss the jam, you don't have any help inside because you've got a free safety that's covering the middle of the field. They're expecting you to win one-on-one. When you're expected to win one-on-one, give a little bit of a cushion. Don't be so high on yourself that you don't try to at least give yourself a chance to make a play, right? Give them, or if you're going to press, I don't care about you pressing, but maybe one arm jam them and then get into your back pedal. He didn't even attempt to get into a back pedal. So before we even, and it is an absolute dime, but before we even can talk about a dime, we have to talk about how beautiful of a release that was by the receiver and how terrible that attempt at a jam was, because that is just, I mean, my son could get off that jam. That was awful. And then after that, he's just running, Yep. And I mean, I think us two and everybody watching could have thrown that ball, because it's absolute. Now that's not taken away from the dime, because it was a beautiful throw, but it's easy to throw the ball when you got that much separation. At least that's 1.5 yards he's already beat, and that's at the line of scrimmage.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Those were things of beauty on both plays there, different ways, obviously, one running, one throwing, but just some of the action that you could see checking out these other teams, even if they're not yours. Trust me, you're missing good ball if you're not watching some of this other stuff. Luckily, when it's a weekday game, we can really take that in a lot easier. When we've got 3 or 4 teams playing all at the same time on a Saturday, that's tough. I do my best to jump around and go back and watch what I've missed. But it's a lot easier on a weekday night. And speaking of weekday nights, we've already had the one last night between the Cajuns and the Bobcats. We have another weekday night game, but this one only features one Sun Belt team, as Georgia State travels up to Connecticut to face the Huskies of UConn, a 5-3 Huskies team.
Surprisingly,
yeah, absolutely surprising. Yeah, they've had some pieces, but they haven't had great teams here lately. They've had a few really good teams in the past, and they seem to put, to me, they're kind of like that North Carolina program, like not great teams, but they seem to always put a few guys into the NFL, and Some of those guys have some pretty good success. So interesting aspect there. But this one's on CBS Sports Network on Friday at 7-6 Central Time. They've got the Huskies favored as a 7.5-point spread, which is probably understandable. I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, maybe it should be higher. I don't know.
It seems like a lot. And not because I think that Georgia State is good, but because I'm looking at their wins, right? Mary Mac, I don't even know who the hell they are. They got FAU, they beat Buffalo, Temple, and Rice. None of those games, none of those wins are impressive to me.
True.
So, I mean, and they lost to Maryland, who's not a good football team, Duke, who's not a good football team, and Wake Forest are their 3 losses, none of which are good football teams. So,
I talk about Wake Forest losing to the Cajuns. So there you go. It's a conference team. You can compete if you feel like you can play with Louisiana.
Right.
Which
so
maybe you can't.
Right.
I
don't know. 7.5 seems like a lot based on what I'm looking at as their win-loss record, and then the point differential in those wins and losses. I mean, obviously, Merrimack, they scored 63 points against them, but they're D2 school. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth. And FAU is just not good. They scored 48 points against them. Buffalo's not good, 47 points against them. And then Temple, who's decent. Temple was very good last year, decent this year. They only scored 29 points and only 17 against Rice. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think 7.5 seems like a lot. I'm going to take Georgia State to go up there and win, just because
I would need to. Yeah, I don't think if I'm recommending stuff to anybody, I wouldn't put much on this game. But if you put like $1 or $2 to win, $1 or $2,
Right.
I would take a chance on UConn. Or shoot, I'm reading the screen. I would take a chance on Georgia State, like you said. I think last week against App, they were really impressive overall. I think the App just has a good enough offense to outscore them. Honestly, they are going to have to play a little bit better defensively, but I don't know. They've got the weapons at the running back position. They've got Hurst out there at wide receiver, who's having a phenomenal year. Gibson looks like he's going to be the guy moving forward. I didn't dislike his game. I just don't know if the line gave him enough time to really put up anything all that impressive against App. So they've got to do better at protecting him and giving him time to see his wide receivers downfield. But the running game was working against App. So yeah, maybe they just didn't need it last Saturday in Boone. But this one really intrigues me. I'm glad we'll get to check this one out on a Friday night because I'm
interested in seeing it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. And Ben's thinking that UConn wins, and he's giving us predictions for every game.
So I like it, Ben.
Yeah, we'll touch back on that. It's going all out. I wonder if he's put a parlay together for that one.
I was scared to say maybe he knows something we don't.
Yeah, maybe a fortune teller there. All right. Here's one I'm really excited about. I'll be at this one in person. Dear old mom and dad are traveling down from Pennsylvania to make the trek. First, they're coming down I-95, and then we're going to take a 3-hour trek in a car again the next day after they get down here.
I was going to say, why wouldn't they just meet you in Boone?
Well, they thought about that.
It's a shorter drive, isn't it?
Well, it's a shorter drive in one respect. Actually, it's probably longer because of the way they have to go. They're on the right side of Pennsylvania, so they shoot down I-95. They're not here in too bad a shape. But if they go down I-81, which actually goes right by, it literally splits the campus of James Madison, essentially.
I was just there.
That's right.
Yeah.
If they go down that way, it just takes a little bit longer. It's not crazy longer. But then there's 2 cars that have to deal with Boone area, and then they have to get in the car and drive separately back to my house after that.
You don't want to drive all that way that day and then drive. At least if you're going to do that, you can drive. So
exactly. Yeah, they can rest, they can sleep, do whatever they need to do. But getting to the game itself, we've got App State hosting the Monarchs of ODU, the hot streak Monarchs. Isaiah Page now pictured here. Apparently Colton Joseph is so fresh and new on the scene. There's not a whole lot of pictures of him online that aren't, copyright infringement stuff. We do have a deal with Imagine, so I can find some pictures, and Isaiah Page was a little bit easier to find than Colton Joseph for whatever reason. But he's an electric wide receiver, so that's fine. Yeah, he definitely deserves to be here on the graphic. This one on Saturday, ESPN Plus, 2:30 local time, 1:30 Central time. ODU going into Boone and favored by 2.5, earning some respect there nationally and through the bettors. The over-under at 60.5 points, though. They expect a lot of points in this one. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm taking the over, but I am going to take ODU to win and cover the spread. Well, okay. Typically in a game like this, when it's 2.5 and you're the away team, that's really 5.5 or 5.5. They're giving the 3 points to the home team. And that's 3 points just because you're home. So what they're saying is that ODU is about 5.5 points better than App State, which I would agree with at this point. I think that they're better on defense. And I don't know if that was – I'm interested in this game because I want to see if that was a one-off that we saw on Saturday, right? I need to know if ODU is as explosive as we thought they were, or as they showed us that last game, because we agreed, and I think a lot of the people agreed with us prior to last week. They had not been very explosive on offense, and then I get home and I look at the score and it's like 20-something. And I'm like, what the hell? What happened? Yeah. So I need to see a little bit. I need to see it happen again. Now I'm going to pick ODU to win, unfortunately, because that hurts my heart.
Yeah,
but I'm going to pick ODU to win, but I'm certainly going to pick the under in this game. I don't know that both teams score 30 points. And I certainly don't think one's going to score 40 and the other scores 20. So I don't think either of these teams are capable of scoring 40 points. So I don't know. I'm certainly taking the under.
Yeah, I would lean towards the under as well because, yes, App State has not been great defensively, but I don't know if – and I will say this. Mobile quarterbacks do scare me as an App State fan. We haven't done great. Had a great one in Armani Edwards and Richie Williams years ago. But when it's on the other side of the ball, the defense at App seems to struggle a little
especially
bit.
This year.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this one does scare the daylights out of me as far as like what could happen. But then there's that part of me that maybe as a homer, maybe as a season ticket holder, but part of me is like, man, that App State magic was there last year to go on a run to keep winning. Now, I don't know if that's going to go the same way, right? I don't know if App State's going to find themselves in a Sun Belt East championship predicament, but could they like win this game and kind of surprise a lot of people? I think they could. I don't know if I'd favor them, but they're playing at home. I think the win last week did them a lot of favors. It wasn't completely packed house because of that concert down there in Charlotte, which was a great thing. So, not going to take too much away from the people that did that and spent a bunch of money to do that. But I don't know. At 2.5 though, it's like you either feel like ODU is going to win by a field goal or more, or you don't. Like I don't know.
I mean, it could very well be that close. I mean, again, ODU has not been explosive. And I said that 3,000 times. And so that's 3,001. But what they showed me last week was that they are capable of scoring. But that's also against a defense in Georgia Southern who we've seen give up 45, 50 points. Now, albeit to the Broncos. That said, though, it has happened. So, yeah. I don't know. Now, on the flip side of that, App State, we also give up points, a lot of them.
Yeah.
We have given them up this year. We haven't historically, but this past year, we have been giving up a lot of points. So, maybe, again, like you said, maybe Vegas knows something that we don't. I don't know. But
they always seem to, right?
Right. But I'm not I can't touch that over. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Yeah.
I mean, if you're taking the over, I think you're thinking like you said, like ODU wins this game like 41-20, you know, like something like that. And maybe some people think that'll happen, but that's a lot of points. And even if a defense,
that's a lot for either of these teams to score.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you can do it every once in a while, but to do it consistently, that's tough. So yeah. Just one more mention on this game. Got two California quarterbacks going at it, and I have some notes here. Colton Joseph hails from Newport Beach, California. Joey Aguilar from Anachoche, California. That is northeast of San Francisco, and Newport Beach is kind of just southeast of LA. So I was like, oh, maybe they might have played each other in high school. I looked at it, 7-hour difference in a car.
So probably
I told you how big the state of California is. These kids had no idea who each other are. So, this is a California matchup at the quarterback position all the way on the East Coast in the town of Boone, North Carolina, which is kind of crazy to think about. And before we move on to the next matchup, I do want to give a shout out to Trojan Joe. Went under a little surgery this morning as you rest up. He's saying great job as always, guys. Yeah, Joe, we really appreciate you jumping on the show literally a few times. What you and the Troy boys continue to put out. So yes, please rest up, get well. I think they just released an episode this morning as well. So he's still hard at work, even with what he's got going on. Artie Cat says ODU needs to continue that retro logo on the helmet. It's a lot better looking. Yeah, I do agree. I own the shirt with the, I think they call it like the racetrack logo because it's old school. It's got like the 3 tiers that spell ODU, very sharp looking. I know G Wills agrees with that. Under for the game as well as what he's saying. He's saying that you're using a little bit of reverse psychology, TJ. Already wishing Trojan Joe well wishes there. Tyler saying good evening, and Lee Corso. I mean TJ. He was wondering a little bit about your displacement of Marshall, I guess we could call it, and wondering why the huge disparity. So he said earlier in a comment on Facebook, I believe it was, what is TJ, the Lee Corso of the syndicate? So I said, you must come on the show and say that comment tonight. So there it is. Thank you very much, Tyler, for following through on that. G-Will says, if you're able to take a prop bet for CJ over rush yards, I'd take it. Yeah, you probably should do that. He's probably gonna get his yardage on Saturday. That is one thing that I do agree will probably happen. The power rankings are atrocious from TJ.
Only one, and that's the only one that applies to you.
Yeah.
However,
well, I think Tyler isn't even a Marshall fan. I think Tyler, if I'm not mistaken, might be a Troy fan. Tyler will have to comment. I believe that's what we had. Or we'll see what he says. I think he's a Troy fan, if I'm remembering correctly. Birdie Buzz joining the show. First time I've seen that name, so that's cool. App State with the W there. Yes, Troy fan for Tyler. So
gotcha. Okay.
He's just wondering where you put him, but he may have missed the beginning of the show where you explained it, and I think that put a lot more people at ease about why that. Now it's mainly the disparity between you and I. That's what people have the biggest problem with,
right? And if you look at the overall rankings, I'm consistent with what the actual standards are, or the actual rankings in the So I don't get off my back, bro.
He said he was looking at how you had JMU over ODU, which I think
because JMU has a better record.
Yeah,
and they haven't played yet.
Yeah, and I think
that'll sort itself out when it's time.
Will.
And for right now, JMU has the better record. ODU has not. I've said this a million times. JMU or ODU has not scored very well other than last week. So there's everything I've done. There's a justifiable cause behind it, Mr. Austin.
I love this, man. This is so much fun. I think this is one of the aspects of our show that I really like. We've talked about you doing the film breakdown, and that's obviously a great part. But this is the other aspect. You look at things differently as a player-minded individual who played the game, and a lot of us are looking at it from a fan's perspective. So it's always cool and interesting to me to see why you've done something. And I tell people, come tell it to his face on the show. He will explain it to you. I never have any problem saying, hey, give TJ hell, because I know, first of all, one, you can take it, but secondly, you're going to have a great definition and reasoning behind what you've done, what you did. It's not just like, well, I didn't really know where else to put it. No, you've never once said that. You've always come out and explained why you've done what you did. So yeah, it's something I really appreciate that we have as a tandem, and what the fans can interact with on that side, and the listeners of fans, listeners, whatever our listeners.
Certainly fans of the Sun Belt. I don't know if they're fans of us, but definitely.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. We had somebody real upset last week saying that, you should stop trashing the school you went to, which, obviously refers to App State, which is kind of funny since I didn't go there. But also didn't think at any one point in time during the show we trashed anybody, especially App State.
And also, whether I do or don't, it's justified. We suck. And that is a fact. That is not, that's not debatable. It's not innuendo. It's not conjecture. It is an absolute statement of fact. We are 1-3 in the conference, 3-4 on the season. We're not a very good football team. And I'll tell that to anybody, quite frankly, that's wearing a black and gold jersey. We are not a good football team. And I don't say this as somebody who, wants to brag about it. We won't be here long, right? This is not something that you should get used to as an App State football team. Like, we're not going to stay. I don't think we've been this bad since 2004. And that's me being super honest about it. I don't think we've been this bad since 2004. And that was the last time we lost to Western and Chattanooga in the same season.
Oof. Long time ago. Artie wants to know if Bobcats rise with the win over Southern Miss next month. Yeah.
I don't know, man. That depends on what everyone else does.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, it's hard to rise when you're beating the teams at the bottom. Those wins. Right. We do have a good example of that, right? We just had App State and Georgia Southern flip-flop, but they only flip-flop each other. They didn't jump anybody else because –
No, and they're not going to.
Yeah. Well, if App wins this game against ODU, they're jumping a few spots.
Well, I mean, in that scenario, yes. But if they
win in that scenario,
then they jump a couple teams if they beat ODU.
Yeah. But you know what's weird to me? I don't know if I'd be confident enough to say they jump them, head to head or anything. That's one of those things where, like, yes, head to head, but like 9 times out of 10, who you think is winning and all that kind of stuff. Like, ooh, that's tough. All right, we spent a lot of time on that one, got a little off track, but that's fine. We've got a big matchup, a West versus East matchup, which is really exciting. Saturday, ESPN Plus, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time. Ooh. That pits ULM 5-2 overall, 3-1 in the Sun Belt, going up against Marshall at 4-3 overall and a 2-1 mark in the Sun Belt, as obviously they've taken their conference by a little bit earlier than some others. They are favored by 10.5 points with a total.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Shocking.
I'm not confident in that.
Favored. Yeah, not shocking that Marshall would be favored because of what happened to ULM just last week, but 10.5 points is a lot.
That is a whole lot. I'm not excited about that spread at all. I am picking Marshall to win just because of their home, right? And then based on, well, I look at it this way. I'm taking Marshall to win for a couple reasons. Number one, ULM, I got to make sure that last week wasn't a fluke, right? Like it wasn't one of those things where they got caught off guard or they got rested on their laurels. And they've had a great season so far, and I'm certainly not saying that it's anywhere close to being over, but they better put up a better performance than they did now. And then also, too, having to travel from Louisiana all the way over to Marshall and all the way up to Virginia that's a lot of miles, right? Different time zones, not a huge amount of time, right, in terms of throwing sleep schedules off or anything like that. But the advantage certainly lends itself to Marshall. I just don't know that it's 10.5.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of favor Marshall. I've got them up at the 2 spot, ranked higher than ULM right now, but that is shocking to me because of what ULM can do defensively to people. Now, again, we saw what can happen when they have a bad game, as they did against South Alabama, and we really do have to do what you just said, question whether that's a one-off bad game or if this is a trend that's now going to start for them.
Right.
And the one thing that we do know is that they do struggle to put up points offensively. So if Marshall can hold them and have a little success on the offensive side of the ball against this ULM defense, it could go that way. I just don't know how much confidence I'd have saying that Marshall could win this game by 10.5 points. It's hard for me to say. Could they win the game? Absolutely. I think they could. I think they, quite frankly, will, like you said, for a couple of those reasons. I also think when you can control the clock and have success running on the ground with Turner and Braxton,
that's the biggest reason for me is Marshall can control the football. They can run it. And sometimes your best defense is a good running game.
Yeah. And listen to this statistic. So Marshall's leading receiver, Fitzpatrick's gone for 335, just 3 touchdowns. So he's not getting into the end zone a ton. But ULM's leading receiver, Godfrey, has only caught 13 passes for 191 yards and 1 touchdown. So again, this is not the explosive offense on ULM side that if they get down early, if Marshall has the kind of game they have against Georgia Southern, they're winning this game.
Exactly. I mean, because they haven't shown that they can throw the ball all over the lot.
No, they have not at all. Armenta is coming and kind of taking over the reins, which I do agree with that decision. He's thrown 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he's still making some mistakes he can't afford to make, especially in the games when you got something like South Alabama where you've got to make a comeback. You've got to start throwing it all over. And just like you said, can't. And just not looking good when that happens. Already saying, come on, stumbling herd. I've not heard that one. That is a good one. I'm sure someone said it before, but that's the first time I've actually heard or seen that one. So
I like it.
That's a good one. Now I'm not sure they're stumbling right now, but
No, but it'd be a good one if they're coming to play against you.
Yeah, that's very, very true. This one I'm definitely interested. I'm interested in all the games. Well, I mean, that's kind of a silly thing for me to say, but interested mainly because of this point spread. Like, what what is Vegas seen that makes them comfortable putting that at 10.5? I have no idea, but well, we shall see. We shall see. All right. Another game Saturday on ESPN Plus as well. 4 Eastern, 3 Central, 1-7 and 0-4 in the conference. Troy Trojans play host to Coastal Carolina, a rematch from the Sun Belt Championship just 2 seasons ago, even though, JMU probably should have been in that one against Troy. But Coastal comes in with a 4-3 overall mark, 1-2 in the conference. They've got work to do, but they seemingly can right the ship here against a just not very good Trojan team. Although, again, we do have to note that comeback attempt at A-State was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a valiant effort for sure.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens there. I believe we're going to see Noah Kim from start to finish in this one. I think he's kind of overtaken Vasco finally, although Vasco does still kind of lead the team statistically at the quarterback position because he's seen more time. I do believe Noah Kim is your guy here. I don't know, 4.5 for Coastal. I don't know. Do you think it could be more? You think that's fair? What are you thinking on that one?
It's fair. They're showing respect to the home team, like we talked about. Being home gets you at least 3 points. So really, the margin is 7.5, which in my opinion is on kind of spot on. I don't know about 7.5, but certainly if they win by 7, Coastal does. That's not going to shock me. You got to, again, traveling to Alabama from, essentially the Atlantic coast is going to be difficult, right? You got to counter, travel always is, and then you got home cooking. I don't know how much home cooking Troy's going to have, though. They have not been filling up their stadiums.
Right.
Over this year, and for good reason, right? People don't want to see them play. They're not a good football team. But yeah, I'm with Artie Cat. I don't see 53 points either. So, Coastal hasn't been great on offense. They're not terrible. They just haven't wowed me.
I think that, you go back and look, they put 24 up against the Cajuns. Didn't win that game, lost by 10, but 24 points up against that defense, as we saw last night. That's not too shabby, right? I mean, we saw a good team only put up 17. So there's that. Now, against JMU, they only put up 7. So, yikes. Scary that way. But against ODU, who we know has a good defense, they put up 37 points against them. I'm sorry, 45 points. They beat ODU 45-37. So they
also put up 55 against Jacksonville State.
Yeah. And against UVA scored 24 points. Again, lost that one. But this team can score points. My question really in this one is Troy starting to hit a stride late in the season. We knew it was going to take some time to develop this team, this roster, this coaching staff into what they probably will kind of come back to. Like you said, you don't feel like App State's going to stay down long. I feel the same way with Troy. Like, they may not be as dominant real quick again, but I don't feel like they'll be a team that sits in the middle or at the bottom for very long, right? Like, they're coming back. It's just how long does it take? And does it start, towards the end of one season and then continue over into the next? I could see it. I mean, Coastal isn't blowing me away with anything that makes me think that they couldn't drop this one. They're coming off the bye last week too. Whereas, again, Troy started to hit their stride against A-State late in that game. I could see this one with Troy jumping out to an early lead, but not insurmountable where Coastal could come back. And that's where I question.
I agree with that.
Yeah, could Coastal come in and win this game by a touchdown? No doubt. I don't think there's any problem with saying that or thinking that. So I kind of agree with Artie. I don't know if I see 53 points. That's a lot. That's a lot for these
point totals, man, have been head scratching to say the least.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering how the looks back have gone, the point spreads have been closer than, or the team and the spread has been closer than the point totals for some of these games. Like, Vegas has been off on the totals, but we'll have to see. I'll have to keep a closer eye on that and remember what's kind of gone on with that. But yeah, this one should be interesting. Again, there's just a little bit of history. I don't know if there's enough because a lot of those players aren't on either of those rosters anymore. But obviously that championship matchup from a few years ago kind of taking the same place again down in Troy. So a little bit of an interesting matchup. We'll see if Troy Trojans and Trojan Joe can get over the hump there against Coastal Carolina and get back to their winning ways and get their first conference win this Saturday, which is kind of a weird thing to say there. All right. Georgia Southern travels on the road to play the explosive offense of the South Alabama Jaguars, who come in 4-4 overall, 3-1 in the conference. Georgia Southern, even with the bad loss they had, still comes in 5-3 overall and 3-1 in the conference. So you've got 2 3-1 teams in the conference, obviously opposite sides of the divisions. But I don't know, this is the nightcap. It's on ESPNU, should be readily available for pretty much everybody to see. And the Jags are favored by 6.5 points with a total over-under of 59.5.
I if I had to pick a game that I'm most excited about, it's this one. I am the most excited about this football game of all the games in the Sun Belt this week. I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner. I don't think either team is equipped to. Stop. No one's stopping any team, but stop each other in that way. I think dynamic play calling on both sides. I think Georgia Southern can put up points in bunches. Gio Lopez, obviously, we have a huge respect for him and his ability to navigate the field with his legs and with his arm. I think they're going to have trouble stopping him, which Georgia Southern has had trouble stopping everybody seemingly this year.
Yeah.
But I think the point total is where it should be in this game. This is the only one I agree with because I don't think either side is going to stop. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. And they're given, I think this is in South Alabama, right?
Yeah. Home team is always on the right on these graphics.
Yeah.
So I do that for myself so that I can keep it straight too.
Gotcha. Okay. So with South Alabama being the home squad, this it makes sense. It makes sense for me. I'm gonna go with South Alabama. I'm not gonna say that confidently.
Yeah.
Because I think it could go either way. Again, I think it's gonna come down to who has the ball last. Artie Cat says Southern wins. If they do, I'm not shocked by whoever. What I would be shocked is if it's a beat down on either side. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think it's going to be a lot of offense. So if you're somebody like me who enjoys touchdowns and a lot of them, I think this is the game you tune in for, and I think that's why I'm so excited to watch it. And two teams
I agree. This one might have some real fireworks. I like both quarterbacks here. I like J.C. French.
Yeah, French has done really well.
Yeah, and I've liked Williams when he's come back in, and done what he's done, but. Again, I don't love the 2 quarterback system. I think you're of the same ilk, right? You don't really like the 2 quarterbacks because you don't have one type of thing, right?
No, yeah, I don't. I've never been a fan of 2 quarterbacks. We tried it once for like a game, maybe not even a game, like a half a game, and we quickly canned that.
Yeah, I'm not loving that at all. So hopefully, if they come in with J.C. French, they stick with him and see if he can get it done, which he's been able to do more often than not. But yeah, I mean, they have a capable backup in Dexter Williams. I think I misspoke on this name earlier, but Dexter Williams is who comes in usually and has had some sparks, right? Scored some touchdowns late in games. But, yeah, I mean, you've got Gio Lopez on the other side of the ball. You've got Pritchett at the wide receiver position. You've got Fluff Bothwell and, going blank on the other running back's name.
Me too. I can see him, but I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I'll bring it up here in a second because it's going to bother me that kept seeing him. Bullock. I wanted to say it was close to Bothwell, and it is Bullock and Bothwell. So they both went off last week. Could they do the same again against this defense? Yeah, they could. But again, South Alabama's defense has given up some points as well sometimes. So, yeah, we'll have to see who holds up stronger. But again, fireworks. Points on the board. This is the one game where I probably lean toward going on the over for the first time. 59 and a half is still a lot of points, but
right.
Defensively, this is the teams that could be susceptible to allowing that kind of point spread in point total. But I mean, I'm probably leaning toward South Alabama because they're playing down at home and they've kind of been hotter lately. But the thing that makes me pause at all is the fact that Southern has had their bad game now. Like did they fix what the wrongs were, and if they do, South Alabama come in too high and get caught in like a trap. I don't know if this is necessarily one of your trap games, but that saying about trap game, you had a good one, you think you're just going to kind of roll through. I don't think they're going to go in there thinking that, by the way. I think, that's what fans think, but could it happen? Yeah, it could. I would think it'd be more likely to happen if the game was at Statesboro, if it was in Statesboro.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Artie's talking about the South Alabama letters that red, white, and blue along with the South Alabama letters look good. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Can't go wrong with red, white, and blue, right?
That is a fact. And the fact that their school initials are USA, which is apropos.
Yeah, you could just chant that all day, and no one's going to find any problem with that, I guess. Firmness says he's done with Del McGee. Well, I disagree with that. I kind of think along the same lines with Del McGee and what's going on at Troy. Like, you got to give some of these coaches time. How close? And you were you at App in 2004? You were on the team in 2004?
No. I got there in 2005.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We started winning championships.
But wasn't the rumor that Jerry Moore was close to being out in 2004?
Yeah, I didn't buy into that one bit. And when I went on my visit, I got no indications of that in 2005 when I went on my visit. So
gotcha. Okay. Well, I know that was something I've heard through the message boards over the years about, the possibility was there. People were saying it. Probably more fans than anything else, as we've seen now and all this stuff. Right. But that also tells you and shows you, like, patience sometimes pays off with these coaches.
Oh, for sure. And now he's the winningest coach in App State history.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Jared Parker and Del McGee, but I think that there's promise in these guys. I think that there's very good possibility with both of these guys, especially Del McGee. I mean, you want to get rid of a guy who's bringing in some really, really highly rated recruits. Now, here's the problem. If you continue to lose like this, do those recruits change their mind and go elsewhere?
That's a fair point. Fair point.
Yeah. But you also have to give him credit for putting in the time and effort and the energy to get these kids to commit in the first place. So there's something there at his job, and literally his job to win on the field and also do all this stuff off the field to bring players in to better the team every season. You can't punish a guy and get rid of a guy already because you've given him not even a full season. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. I know Joe has kind of been, saying stuff about Parker's not in and everything. I just don't. I'm not sold on that. I mean,
you got to give it some time. Programs need to develop, and they need to get talent in, and they need to build the culture. I mean, there's a lot that needs to happen in order for a program to be successful. I know we live in this microwave society where we think things should happen right now, and sometimes if you're building a culture and you're building a team and you're building a program, not just a football team, right? When you try to build a program, success isn't the main. Don't misplace what I'm saying. Success is always a priority, but culture is much more of a priority right away than success is. And I think that you're going to have those lulls and those drops when that happens. Now, if you look at it on the flip side, where App State is, we've given Sean Clark ample time to establish a culture, right? To establish winning. And he's done that for the most part, right? The first couple of years, they got the bowl games and they did pretty well. The last 2 years, not so great. I mean, last year they won and did pretty. There was some spots though, right, where we gave up some things that we shouldn't have. And this year, I think it's starting to tell on itself. So I use that in comparison to say, here's a guy who's been here for 5 years now, 6 years, Sean Clark, and you've got another guy who's halfway through his first season. Yeah, let's take it easy, right?
Yeah, and I do believe now that Sean Clark is the longest tenured head coach in Sun Belt, which tells you how quickly we're turning over these guys. Like, some of it's good because they've been successful, so they're gone. So like Signetti, although his tenure in the Sun Belt obviously didn't last that long because James Madison's not even been in this conference long enough for him to have been around too long. But that's an example.
Eli Drinkwitz. Look at Eli, what he's done over at Mizzou.
Yep. G. Will says, sorry to interrupt. Liberty, duck, love it. And duck emoji. Did Did you see Sean Clark's press conference where he mentions this?
I did not.
Oh man, I wish I could like clip that out and show it. So since G Will's brought it up, what is the score there? Are they losing again?
Yeah, 21-24. Jacksonville State is up with 4 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and Jacksonville State has the ball and is driving.
This is great. All right, and a second episode where we're going to see Liberty lose while we're watching. This is fantastic.
Let's hope.
Season gets better every day, you know? But so somebody alluded to the fact about, I forget exactly how the question was phrased, but something about how, the games take place at this level and missing out on a game and what that kind of means. And he says something, and then right after that he says, I believe I'll just duck that question. And he kept a straight face. He did not laugh, did not crack his eyes. Like, I don't know how he didn't crack.
That's awesome.
That was such a great – it's like the perfect thing to say in that moment. So full credit to Sean Clark for being aware of the situation, understanding what the question was, and then throwing it back to a little troll job right there in a live interview that he did. I think that was post-game after this past weekend, actually. So,
That's awesome.
It was absolutely fantastic for those that aren't familiar with what went on. Liberty's head or starting quarterback, I should say, Salter, placed a duck emoji after the game was canceled. So did a little thing on a graphic on that. But it was a callback to that thing that he put up on Twitter after the hurricane happened and the game got canceled. All right. Artie says a massive fumble from your All-American running back in critical situation. It happens to us all. Yeah.
It certainly happened to JMU against us in 2007. And they should have beat us.
I was there. I'll be honest, it was a terrible game all the way around, like the whole time.
Oh, for sure. We played awful.
That's exactly like no business winning the game. And then you're like,
we were actually, obviously we were praying that we were going to win and everybody was holding hands on the sideline and all that. But we were also at a place where we were content if we had lost because we knew how terrible we'd played. Like, we deserved to lose that game. Yeah. Not that we would have been happy about it.
Right.
But
you would have.
It's one of those things where, like, okay, you lost because you played terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being there. It was like, and no one was really in the stands, right? It's that terrible weekend to host a first round playoff game, like the Thanksgiving Day weekend.
It was the weekend. Right after Thanksgiving, all the kids were home.
Yep. So like me and my roommate were the only two left in Boone, and he had gone down to see his family in Hickory, and then he had them come up. And so we had like almost 90% of a student section all to ourselves. Not the whole student section. I'm saying like one of the smaller.
Where you were. Yeah.
Yeah. We could have run back and forth on the bleachers. You know what I mean? And we're just sitting there going, wow, this is the game we got his parents to come up to. Like, this is terrible, man. They're not playing well at all. And then one of the greatest finishes of a football game, because it was just so unexpected and so like, what are you doing? Why would you even do that?
Right. And they were already in field goal range.
Yeah. Yeah. And Artie was saying that your all-conference QB gets knocked out of the game just like insurance commercial with mayhem. Yeah, with McLeod getting knocked out. Yeah, it was a tough moment last night in that game, all the way around. But again, Martinez came in, and he was not the reason that they couldn't come through.
He like 11 for 13 or 11 for 12 or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, we did say no touchdowns, one interception, but again, you got to try and make some things happen.
He did throw the one pick, but I mean, you're coming in cold and you're only throwing the ball 11 times. I mean, come on, give the guy a break.
Yeah. G. Will said, if only ODU had a football team in 2007. Yeah, they were. Yeah, that's what's crazy to think about. Like, they had the team, they got rid of it for a while and then brought it back. And hey, look, they've ended up in one of the most exciting conferences in the country the two best divisions in all of college football, as we like to say.
Right.
For the reminder to people that don't understand that reference, we have the only two divisions in all of college football.
Right.
So it's factual. It's a factual statement. We have the two best divisions in all of college football.
Because we're the only ones that exist.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well, we got Halloween tomorrow, man. Are you a Halloween guy? Like, you dress up, you get into this, or is it kind of like for the kids?
No. I don't have time to, man. Like I don't. That's a lie. I do have time to. I don't care to. I don't want to. I'm gonna eat some of his candy. I'm gonna take him, and we're gonna do it that way. And our neighborhood is pretty much big. I mean, you've been in my neighborhood. It's big enough where we can do it. Stay in the neighborhood, knock it out in an hour and a half. Come home, eat some candy, go to bed. So
TJ lives in a neighborhood where they have full-size candy bars, I bet.
Don't tell people that. Although it's a fairly decent neighborhood, yes.
Yeah, it's nice, and that's a good thing. But I'm kind of like you. Like back in the college days, I was really into Halloween. Like I didn't.
Oh, I loved it, and even in college and right after college.
Yeah. When it's more of like a drinking holiday and a time to have more fun because you're going out and you're moving around quite a bit, seeing people dressed up in other costumes, like it's all kind of fun. As you get older, it's like all the emphasis is on the kids, making sure they have fun and have a good time. I do have the Iron Man helmet as I had on earlier. I don't really know if I'll wear that tomorrow because I don't really think it's going to be comfortable for long periods of time, but I could throw it on if it appeases my son to have something on. What happened?
Oh crap!
They just picked 6.
It was almost a pick 6. They got it down to the 1 yard line. Liberty just threw an interception with 2:34 left to go and no timeouts. Jacksonville State has the ball on the 1 yard line, already up 3.
Oh yes, this is so great.
It should have been a pick 6. There's a flag, probably for excessive celebration. But, this one might be over.
Oh man, that is great. I love to hear that. But all right, so if you're picking out one more question before we go, you're picking out candy out of the bag. Are you searching for something specific? You just eating whatever you come across?
Snickers. Minis. I can eat about 30 Snickers minis. First of all, it's my favorite candy bar of all time.
Okay,
Snickers.
Respect.
And and I think it's that way because of App State. Did you knew that? You didn't know that, right?
No. What's the story?
So halftime. Every halftime we had a full Snickers bar and a shot of Gatorade in our locker. It was already put in our locker. Every halftime of every game, whether we were home or away, did not matter. Full size Snickers bar and a shot of Gatorade. It was like a mini Gatorade cup. And it was in every single one of our lockers, no matter home or away. We always had Snickers and Gatorade. That was our halftime snack. Okay,
so totally unrelated. But what the most hilarious thing is, maybe this is a football thing, because my dad grew up playing football, played in college, not at your level, but he played at Bloomsburg, a smaller D2 school in Pennsylvania. He used to, like, sometimes before games, but certainly after games and everything, he would get me a Snickers and a Gatorade. Mm-hmm. So it's just funny that's the go-to. Like, you want something sweet, right? You want to have something enjoyable. You want to have something with a little protein with the peanuts involved.
Exactly. The chocolate's going to give you a little jolt of energy, and the protein, the nuts are protein. Yeah.
Makes sense. I did not know that, though. I did not know that was a thing. I'm wondering if they still do that.
I hope so. I mean, it was kind of a tradition. It got to be a point where, like, if it wasn't there, like, we were worried before the game. Like, hey, you got those Snickers? Like, what? So another funny story about me, and as it relates to Snickers, and then we'll go for sure. My freshman year, the first catch I ever had as a collegiate athlete was against Aqib Talib at Kansas. First catch, 42-yard bomb. Richie Williams threw it to me, right? In my sock before the game. So before the game, we again, Snickers bars were there, all that whole bit. I didn't play the first game against Western Kentucky. So okay. I didn't play at all. So I'm sure thinking that I'm not going to play against Kansas, right? Like, there's no way. We get down by, like, I don't know, 10 points or whatever. Coach Moore is like, hey, where's the freshman? And I'm, like, sitting on the sideline, like, he talking about me. Like, okay, I grabbed the wrong helmet. Then I had to go back and find my helmet. Anyway, long story short, I had a Snickers bar in my sock because I was going to eat it on the sideline. Because I just play, because I thought I wasn't going to play, but I forgot it was there the entire time. So after the game, the Snickers had melted and the package had busted open. The Snickers had melted, into my sock and into my shoes. So there's, like, peanut butter and chocolate just in my, or not peanut butter, but peanuts and chocolate, like, running down my sock, and then it's taped up. and inside. And so it has nowhere to go except in my shoe. It was absolutely gross. I mean, it was. I didn't even know about it because during the game you're not thinking about it. Like, right? You don't remember there's a Snicker bar in your socks. You got high socks on. What are you thinking? But yeah, so me and Snickers had a terrible incident. My first football game that I've ever played, got in the game and played at that.
Right. Oh, that's a great story though. A Snickers bar melting like that, man.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Jambalaya Bella. Oh, man, how do you pronounce that?
Bellalaya. Yeah.
All right. He's asking if we covered Marshall ULM yet. We did. And so we'll just make mention quickly that neither one of us have a problem with Marshall winning that game. Did you favor Marshall in that one? Remind me.
I did favor Marshall.
Yeah. I think I favored Marshall. Is that our question was if they would cover the 10.5 point spread, because that's quite a bit. And then he's saying interesting that he's ironically in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania this very second. So very cool. My parents are both still up there. They met in Bloomsburg, and it was like, listen, I think I've said this to you, TJ, maybe said it on the show before, but Bob and Brenda are my parents' names. Football player, cheerleader.
How about that?
Couldn't get more plain than that, right?
That's a cliche family.
Yeah.
And then together they had a soccer player.
Yeah, no, it doesn't fit at all. But it happens.
Liberty just lost. That sealed the deal.
That's great. That makes me really happy. So now we can end the episode on a happy note there.
Yeah, 31-21, minute 57 seconds left. They're not going to score 10 points in 2 minutes. So game's over.
No, ain't gonna happen. Oh man. Well, we'll toast to that. Cheers with my water here weekday night. But yeah, man, this was great. Look forward to Sunbelt action. Don't forget, after Halloween, we've got that Friday night game for everybody to take in. And then we'll get into the Saturday action and have some more fun with it.
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys later.
Presented by